You call this food? My husband hissed those words across the table, his tone sharp enough to slice through the laughter that had filled the room just seconds before. My parents sat stiff, my in-laws froze mid-bite, and in that moment I felt every eye flicker between me and him like they were watching the opening act of a play they hadn't bought tickets for. His voice carried that familiar venom, the one he reserved for me when he thought no one else would notice. But tonight he didn't hold back. "My parents aren't strays," he spat. "Don't feed them scraps." The words stung, but not as much as the silence that followed. And then, before anyone could say anything, I leaned forward and whispered so quietly only he could hear me. "I didn't order this." His jaw dropped, color drained from his face, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like the ground had shifted beneath him instead of beneath me. "My name is Sabrina. I'm 28 years old, a UX designer currently on maternity leave, and for years I told myself I had built something solid, something real, something permanent. I had a husband I thought I knew, a home I thought was safe, and a future I thought was certain. His name was Luke, and when we met, I truly believed he was the kind of man you build forever with. He was the life of the room, the one who could disarm strangers with a joke, the one who somehow made me feel like I was the only person that mattered even in a crowded lodge full of people. We met through mutual friends on a retreat in the mountains. He lit up every conversation. But what caught me wasn't the charm. It was the moments in between, the small glances, the steady way he listened when I spoke, like he had memorized my words. After a year of dating, he proposed by the sea during a picnic where the sky stretched wide, and I thought the world had finally aligned in my favor. I said yes without hesitation, without doubt. My parents loved him. His parents adored me. Evan, his father, brought jokes and wine to every gathering. And Vivian, his mother, embraced me as though I was her second daughter. She once told me she'd prayed Luke would find someone who truly saw him. At that time, I thought maybe I was the answer to that prayer. When we married, both families pooled together for the down payment on a starter home. I remember opening that front door with Luke, believing this was the beginning of something unshakable. For a while, I was right. Life was good, really good, until I got pregnant and everything began to shift. At first, Luke was thrilled. He said all the right things, that he'd be the best dad, that he'd work extra hours so our baby would have everything, that he'd carry us through this new chapter with strength. But promises are cheap when they aren't followed with presents. The further along I got, the further away he felt. He started working late nights, said he was banking. Overtime, but the longer my belly grew, the more I realized he wasn't just late, he was absent. I told myself he was stressed, that this was how he showed love, by providing. But love isn't walking past your wife without asking if she's okay after she's spent the day vomiting and scrubbing a bathtub on her knees. Love isn't turning shared responsibilities into solo acts. When we both worked, we split chores. When I got pregnant, he insisted he'd take over. And in the beginning, he did. Cooked meals, did laundry, even rubbed my swollen feet. But the late nights turned to no nights, and slowly it all fell back on me. It was as though pregnancy had made me invisible. By 6 months, I went on maternity leave. I thought it would be a relief, but the quiet house became an echo chamber. I was sick, hormonal, exhausted, and still trying to keep everything spotless. Meanwhile, Luke treated it like I was on some luxury vacation. One evening, he came home earlier than usual. I was lying on the couch, drained to the bone, and hadn't managed to cook. The second he saw me, his frown carved itself deep. "You're just lying there?" I sat up, holding my head. "I've been nauseous all afternoon. I just needed a break." He stared at the kitchen like it was proof of my failure. "You've been home all day, Sabrina." "Nothing's ready." "I work 10 hours and come home to this?" My chest tightened. "I'm growing a human being, Luke. I'm doing my best," he muttered under his breath, grabbing a drink from the fridge. "You always play the 'I'm pregnant' card when you don't want to do anything." The words landed like knives. "Are you kidding me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "No," he shot back. "You've checked out. You're not working. You barely do anything around here." My throat burned. "So what do you want, Luke? A wife or a full-time maid?" He shook his head, dismissive. "I just want you to stop acting like carrying a baby gives you a free pass." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood, walked past him, and said, "I'm staying with my parents. I need space. I need peace." His answer was ice cold. "Fine. Do whatever you want." And so I did. That night I packed a suitcase. My dad picked me up the next morning, silent the whole ride, except for the way his hand squeezed mine when we pulled into their driveway. My mom had already prepared the guest room, lavender lotion on the nightstand. For the first time in months, I felt safe. Weeks passed. I sent Luke one pregnancy update. He didn't reply. The silence didn't surprise me, but it still cut. Then, one afternoon, my parents opened the door, and there stood Evan and Vivian, holding groceries and worry. "We didn't know," Vivian said softly. "Luke never told us you left." Evan shook his head, embarrassed. "We thought everything was fine until we pressed him." They stayed an hour, apologizing, sharing old stories, trying to patch the cracks Luke had left gaping. I wanted to believe it meant something. Days later, Luke showed up unannounced at my parents' porch. No text, no call, just rang the bell like nothing had happened. I opened the door and he said the words I'd been starving for. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said what I said. I didn't mean to make you feel alone." I crossed my arms. "You didn't make me feel alone, Luke. You left me alone." He dropped his gaze. I know, I was stressed. "I want to fix this." And against the voice screaming inside me, I told him I'd come back, but only after the baby was born. I couldn't risk stress in my last trimester. He agreed, or at least he pretended to. Lily was born on a rainy October morning after 14 hours of labor that felt like a war against my own body. My mother was the one who held my hand through the final pushes because Luke was still on the way, caught in traffic after another late night at work. He arrived just as her first cry echoed through the sterile hospital room, his face pale, eyes wet, looking at our daughter like she was made of both fire and glass. For a fleeting moment, I believed things might change. We brought Lily home wrapped in a floral blanket and the fragile hope that love would be enough. At first, Luke seemed tender, hovering over the bassinet, kissing my forehead, whispering that he couldn't believe we had made something so perfect. But his phone never stopped buzzing. Slack notifications, late-night pings, calls he insisted he couldn't ignore. Even as I bled, leaked, shook through sleepless nights, he was tethered to work like it was his real family. By the second week, he was back at the office full-time. That's when reality caved in. Lily had colic. She screamed for hours into the night, her tiny body curling in pain I couldn't soothe. She struggled to latch. I pumped between feedings, my body breaking down while my mind frayed into exhaustion. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight in days. My shirt perpetually soaked with milk, my eyes red and raw. Luke would step over burp cloths scattered on the floor, kiss her head once, hand me a travel mug and say, "You've got this, babe," before disappearing for another 12-hour stretch. I didn't have it. I was drowning. Some nights I held her in the rocker until morning, her cries finally fading against my chest, my own tears soaking her blanket. One evening, after a particularly brutal day, I reheated soup and left it on the stove for him. He walked in past 9, sniffed the air, and frowned. "Soup again?" he asked, disdain dripping like acid. I blinked, barely able to stand. It's all I could manage. "She hasn't stopped crying since noon." His response was a tight smile. "My parents are coming next Saturday. I'd appreciate it if you planned something decent. I don't want them thinking you can't handle a simple lunch." My chest constricted. Vivian already texted me. She said not to stress about food. Luke snorted. "That's just her being polite." "Don't embarrass me." The words sank into me like stones, but I bit my tongue. That entire week, Lily's sleep grew worse. My body became a battlefield of caffeine and adrenaline. The night before their visit, I tried to start a pasta bake, but halfway through, Lily had another screaming fit and I abandoned the kitchen to hold her until dawn. By morning, I was shaking with exhaustion. Luke left early with one last command. "Remember, no store-bought junk." As soon as the door shut, I broke. Desperate, I called a local gourmet deli and ordered an artisan spread, rosemary focaccia, marinated olives, truffle hummus, imported cheeses, prosciutto, handcrafted crackers. I even bought tulips from the florist, desperate to fake the picture of a life that looked whole. I was just arranging everything when the doorbell rang. Eyes! Vivian beamed, holding wine. Evan lifted a bag. We thought you could use reinforcements. My throat tightened with gratitude. They swept in, Vivian scooping Lily from my arms like she'd been waiting all week. Evan unpacked the bag, revealing appetizers from the same deli I had ordered from. I confessed my panic, and Vivian laughed softly. Perfect, then we'll have a feast. Honestly, I wish someone had done this for me when Luke was born. She noticed my hollow eyes, her voice gentling. You haven't slept, have you? Not really, I admitted. Then go lie down. We've got Lily. We've got food. Rest. I wanted to argue, but instead I collapsed on the couch, drifting into sleep to the sound of Evan humming and Vivian cooing at my daughter. Hours later, I woke to keys in the door and Luke's voice slicing through the quiet. Sabrina, are you seriously sleeping right now? I shot upright, groggy, disoriented. He stood there, holding the platter I'd prepared, his face twisted with disgust. What is this? You bought appetizers? I asked you to cook. My parents are here and this is what you give them? My stomach turned to stone. What are you talking about? I'll throw this crap out and make something decent, he snapped, moving toward the kitchen. Wait, Luke, your dad brought those. He froze, disbelief flashing across his face. You're lying. Before I could respond, a voice cut through the room like a blade. She's not lying. Evan stood in the doorway, wine glass in hand, Vivian cradling Lily behind him. We bought those appetizers. Vivian picked them out. I paid. We knew Sabrina would be exhausted. So we wanted to help. Luke's jaw tightened, his face pale. Oh, I just thought, you didn't think, Evan snapped, his voice sharp. Vivian's tone turned colder than I'd ever heard. You insulted your wife in front of your daughter. You didn't ask. You just accused. Luke tried to laugh it off, but no one smiled. Evan's disappointment was heavy, the kind that makes a grown man shrink. Then it happened. Luke's phone buzzed twice where it lay charging on the table. Vivian, closest to it, instinctively glanced at the screen. Her face shifted from confusion to stone. She picked it up, her voice low but steady. Who's Julia? The room froze. Luke's eyes widened. Mom, don't... But she read aloud anyway. You left your sweatshirt and lighter here. Can't wait for next time. My heart stopped. The floor vanished. I stared at him, my voice trembling. What is that? He stiffened, his silence louder than any confession. Evan's voice cut the air. Luke, are you having an affair? Luke swallowed, his lips parting with a pathetic excuse. It's just someone from work. It didn't mean anything. We were fighting, I was lonely. His father's words were steel. She was pregnant with your daughter. What kind of man abandons his wife and lies about? Overtime to sleep with another woman? Vivian stared at him like she didn't know him. We trusted you. We defended you. And this is what you've done? Luke snapped, desperate. She left me first. She went to her parents. My voice cut sharp. I left because you made this house unbearable. Because you treated me like a burden for carrying your child. He raked his hands through his hair. I'm sorry, okay? It didn't mean anything. I held his gaze, my tone flat. Her name's Julia, isn't it? Your phone lit up, before you could even accuse me of laziness. Vivian's voice shook with rage. You said you wanted to fix things. But you came here, insulted your wife, lied again, and now this. Luke opened his mouth, but Evan raised a hand. Don't. He turned to me, his voice steady. Do you want him out? My answer came without hesitation. Yes, tonight. Luke's face twisted. You're kicking me out of my own house? I met his eyes unflinching. You forfeited your place here the moment you disrespected me and betrayed our family. I won't share a roof with someone who treats me like this. Evan left the room, came back minutes later with a duffel bag. He dropped it at Luke's feet. You'll stay with us until this is resolved. Luke turned desperately to his mother. Mom! Vivian's answer was ice. You're our son, but that doesn't make you right. I picked Lily up, pressed her tiny body to mine, and walked to the nursery while they escorted him out of the house. I didn't look back. The night Luke left felt like the end of a storm and the beginning of silence. I tucked Lily into her crib, kissed her soft forehead, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel fear creeping into my bones. I felt empty, yes, but also strangely strong, like the worst had finally cracked open and shown me the truth I had been too afraid to face. My in-laws stayed that night, making tea in my kitchen as though it were theirs, quietly folding laundry while I sat at the table trembling. Evan looked at me, eyes heavy with sorrow. "You did the right thing," he said. Vivian squeezed my hand. "We're here for you." Their word. The next weeks blurred into lawyer meetings and paperwork, each page of the divorce filing like a nail in the coffin of the life I had once imagined. Luke sent messages begging for forgiveness, calling it a mistake, saying he missed his family. But then came the custody threats, his tone flipping from regret to entitlement. "You can't keep my daughter from me. Courts always favor fathers now. I'll make sure you regret this." His words chilled me, but I refused to back down. My lawyer was relentless, building the case brick by brick. His affair, his negligence, his absence during pregnancy, even the night he humiliated me over store-bought food. Vivian and Evan gave sworn statements against their own son. I wept when I read them, not because I doubted them, but because I realized they loved Lily and me enough to tell the truth even when it broke their family in two. The hearings were brutal. Luke sat across from me in pressed suits. Julia sometimes waiting in the hallway, her smirk sharp as glass. He claimed I was unstable, too emotional, unfit to care for Lily alone. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat as my lawyer presented records of pediatric visits, testimonies from neighbors who heard me, pacing the floors at 3 a.m. with a crying baby, proof that I had been the one, holding this house, together while he built a life of lies. The judge listened, unmoved by Luke's polished words. When the verdict came, it was clear. Primary custody awarded to me, visitation granted but under supervision until he could prove stability. I felt the weight lift off my shoulders in that courtroom, the first breath of freedom filling my lungs. Luke's face went pale, the mask slipping as the reality of his downfall sank in. Julia was gone within months, leaving him when the shine of rebellion wore off and the wreckage of his choices became undeniable. He moved back into his parents' house, a shell of the man who once stood in our living room demanding perfection from me. Meanwhile, I began to rebuild. The house felt different without him, lighter, warmer. I painted the nursery walls a soft lavender, planted tulips in the garden like Vivian once suggested, and filled the rooms with laughter, from playdates and the smell of bread baking on weekends. I found work again, part-time at first, consulting from home during Lily's naps, slowly regaining pieces of the identity I had lost in the shadows of his neglect. Therapy helped too, peeling back layers of guilt until I could finally say it without shame. I wasn't too much and I wasn't not enough. I was exactly what my daughter needed. Months turned into a year, then another. Lily grew into a toddling whirlwind of curls and giggles, her favorite word up as she raised her arms toward me. Each milestone, her first steps, her first birthday candle, felt like proof that love could survive the shattering of promises. Luke visited occasionally, supervised by his mother. Sometimes I saw him watching us from across the room, a man staring at the life he threw away, regret etched into every line of his face. But regret doesn't rebuild trust, and love doesn't return just because someone finally realizes what they lost. One spring evening after Lily's second birthday, Vivian sat with me on the porch while she chased bubbles in the yard. "You know," she said softly, "you're stronger than I ever was." I stayed when I should have left. "You left when it mattered most." Her words stayed with me. Strength wasn't about never breaking, it was about knowing when to stop letting someone else break you. The final signature on the divorce decree arrived in the mail that summer. I opened the envelope, read the words, and felt something unshackle inside me. Not relief exactly, not joy, but a clean slate. The life I thought I wanted had crumbled, but in its place was something truer, steadier, something mine. I tucked Lily into bed that night, kissed her forehead, and whispered a promise. "You will never grow up thinking this is love. You will know love as safety, as kindness, as truth." She stirred in her sleep, her tiny hand clutching mine. and for the first time in years, I believed my own words.